With all the items you can loot in Starfield, you've likely been in the position where you're carrying far too much junk, and it might not just be paper clips and dish rags, it's likely some important stuff that you need for research or crafting. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to slap together a ton of cargo containers on a cockpit and some engines with the ability to break orbit so you don't have to worry about inventory space ever again, unless you plan on hauling around items with a combined mass that's over 21,000. So let's get ready to fill up the spray gun with some Hot Rod Red, grab the best gear on the market, and get after it. With most of the powerful engines and reactors being in the Class C category, hopefully it's no surprise that you'll need a few skills to make this happen, with the first one being piloting. This particular skill is unlocked in the first tier of the tech tree, and maxing it out, which isn't overly difficult, will allow you to pilot Class C ships. Another skill that you're probably going to want, and it doesn't have to be maxed out, is starship design, which goes almost hand in hand with piloting, since to build bigger, stronger, and faster ships, you'll need to unlock some choice upgrades. In order to really build a bucket of bolts that'll carry anything, you'll need to really understand how the landing gear works in terms of liftoff and landing, and how many of each you'll need to generate enough thrust to get off the surface of explorable planets. The best landing gear for this build is going to be gear that generates 4 thrust, and the so what of that is, for each point of thrust you'll be able to lift a mass of 200, giving each piece of gear the ability to lift 800 mass. You can find the NG-20 wide gear in the Sol system, which as you can see from the map footage is just about a 9 iron away from Alpha Centauri. Once in the Sol system, you can head to Titan, which is one of Saturn's moons and also the home of the colony of New Homestead. After landing, you can speak to the ship merchant and start your epic build by cannibalizing a ship in your fleet and building your cargo ship from scratch. Just for ease of explanation and not having to go through the menus and waste your time, we'll start out with all the ship's parts already on the field. Like a basic ship, you'll need a cockpit, a hab module, or more than one if you like space. You'll also need an NG6 landing bay or something similar in terms of height, since the meat and potatoes of this build are centered around the 8 NG20 landing gear setups. For a bulk of the cargo space, you can actually go with the 40T hauler cargo hold, since they're one of the largest capacity holds out there and they have a fairly decent design. You can also flip them on their axis in order to place one on top of another for a more rounded ship design. For the reactor, the Fuser DC-403 should do, which can be replaced later on by the SF-40 sheared reactor if you need a little more juice. For the grav drive, you can drop in the J51 Gamma drive, which can be swapped out for the J52 or an Apollo GV300 when the time is right to cut a little bit of mass. Bolted right onto the back will be 4 Supernova 2100 engines, an Assurance SG3000 shield generator to suck up some of that damage, and on top of 14 T40 cargo holds, we'll add an additional 2 Galleon S204 cargo holds. For fuel, we'll be using the Titan 550 helium tank, and lastly, the NG2 Docker top, which needs to be placed on the outside edge of the ship. As far as weapon systems, there are a lot of debates out there on loadouts and what the best ones are, but for this junk hauler, you can tack on the Vanguard Ares particle cannons, some PB300 alpha beams, and a Devastator 1500 missile launcher for some serious upfront DPS. 6 of the T-40s will get dropped on top of the landing gear, leaving space on the aft landing gear to drop the Galleon cargo holds into place. The large grav drive and reactor can be dropped in right behind the hab stack so they fit flush with the ship, and after flipping one T-40 on its axis so you can stack 2 of them, you can tack those onto the side of the Galleon cargo holds, making a good base for one of the engines. As you follow the game footage, it's important to note that different spaceports will have different parts to tack onto your growing fleet of ships. For example, the Crimson Fleet vendor, which can be reached through faction questing, has shielded cargo holds available for purchase, just in case you want to smuggle some contraband on and off world. You've also likely come across vendors that sell different ship styles, but what you may not know is they also sell specific brand parts for your ship. All that being said, after piecing this thing all together like a futuristic Lego set, assigning weapon systems, slapping on your choice of paint, and running the flight check, It'll give you a warning about low mobility, but even though it's slow, it's still space-worthy. It's also a lifesaver with the ability to haul a whopping 21,000 mass, especially if you're doing a fair amount of outpost building to rank up planetary habitation, which requires you to build a few habitable outposts on different planets. If you're not sure how to build habitable outposts, just click the video on the screen now for some great outpost tips, and as always, good hunting.